Hello and most welcome to 1980 of the H series. We will today continue with uh, Eugen Fischer, Cognitivism. Non-Cognitivism explained and vindicated. 1980 was also the of Hockney doing this marvelous painting in the Hockney way. Looks like a southern landscape. The French coastline, good view. And let's go to the text maybe. And there we have Eugen Fischer. Last time we looked at how there is a spiral going on in vision. We remember the saccades and the black box, or the idea of mind being inside. It's a sort of stopping point. No contradictions after that are allowed. That block, that with a cul-de-sac. You go into it and you don't get out. The way stops. I remember I had a professor, Dag Westerståhl. He said, you can base anything on true in itself, a truism. And from that you build the whole world. It doesn't really get any more left hemispheric than that. Then you've given up all opposition. No longer, as Ian McGilchrist would have it, coincidence of oppositions. Everything becomes the same. Sameness is going to rule all. I also compare to origin, a sort of fixation to the, excuse me, wanting to go to the origin also comes from this, so to speak, this. It could be an originary saying, an originary happening, an originary thought, that thought was more important, whereas in reality it comes simultaneously. We took quite a specific gander at that when we looked into David McNeill. So he rejects both the idea that language was first and the idea that pantomime gesture was first. He says they coincided the opposite because they need to be opposite. Opposites, not only one, but very different. So it's a preemptive way of reconciliation, everything that makes language into a standstill. The whole world stops. It becomes static. It will be only representations of what used to be a living world. Vivid, animated, joyful, happy, all those things. Humor, everything becomes the same and idiosyncratic. And my bold statement here, this is the same as the escape to the left hemisphere. This is one of the reasons, or so to speak, or what causes it, and also to a great extent, is it? It's a sort of deep mistake in analogical reasoning. And I will continue to read at page 75, where I left off, the last of the analogical reasoning. So this last effect, arguably the most fundamental, is aptly characterized by some remarks from Wittgenstein's Vindicated and contemporaneous dictations. We do not encounter philosophical problems at all in practical life. We encounter them only when we are guided not by any practical purpose in forming our sentences, but by certain analogies within language. Many a false analogy has been accepted into language. We then often think in accordance with it without realizing that it is the source of our thought. Source, source, source. To use psychoanalysis way of putting things, a simile is at work in the unconscious. Such a false picture is frequently underlying feelings of philosophical perplexity, which we articulate by formulating philosophical problems. Philosophical problems. What to do? Let's make them. False analogies, which are in a sense at work in the unconscious and have been accepted into language. Some analogies have been accepted into language in that their source models have guided already the development of bits of language. Language, language, language. Thus, the development of our talk of communication was guided by, among others, the primitive model of an exchange of boxes, which has as use a whole system of metaphorical expressions, a conceptual metaphor, in terms established by Lakoff and Johnson. Yay. And Jaws! 1980. Isn't that a strange coincidence? That was the book we were looking for. It came 1980. Actually, I didn't read that far in the text. That's the Christ to me. Holy moly. We say, and this is from Jacob Johnson, we say, for example, that, that when we try to get a message across as we put our ideas, thoughts, or feelings into words like boxes, which carry their meaning and may either convey the ideas or feelings put into them or be void of ideas and empty of meaning, and confront listeners and readers with the task of grasping the content of our statements and extracting ideas from our prose whose meaning and content is clear to the extent that we have not crammed too much into opaque formulations, etc. This is the famous conduit metaphor that we also mentioned in connection with meaning. Elsewhere, I explore how different such models guided first development of language. We used to talk about a given topic and then drive abstract in reflection that topic of that topic. How in such reflection we unwittingly but systematically take such metaphorical models more literally than we know appropriate, thus turning them into false analogies. False analogies. As we propose the literal truth of assumptions, articulating them, articulating them, articulating them. Articulating them in autonomous and irrational leap, 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 leap of thought, which are constitutive of such inferential urges as we discussed in this paper. Paper, paper, paper. So that the analogies can be said to be at work in the unconscious. The mentalist urge we considered ultimately arises I suspect, from unwittingly literal application of the books exchange model that guided the development of the conduit metaphor. Mhm. Exchange. Such inferential urges may drive us to formulate ill-motivated reconciliation problems. Reconciliation problems. Usually, reconciliation problems are initially articulated by questions of the or how is it possible that P motiv- motivated by the expression, the impression that there is some sort of difficulty about P, where P tends to be a truism or trivial observation, a sort of puzzle question in the face of the familiar that, according to Plato, is the prime starting point of philosophical endeavor. Endeavor. I like that. Endeavor. Endeavor. We then obtain the explicit formulation of a reconciliation problem by pinning down the pertinent difficulty about P, which tends to be an apparent conflict with another proposition we accept. How is it possible that P, given that Q, where Q typically is a philosophical doctrine, something linear, something coherent, linear, coherent. Elsewhere, I analyze in detail the contemporary problem of linguistic creativity and classical epistemological, semantic, and metaphysical problems that arise ultimately from the sense datum doctrine of perception. David Thomas, Dawkins, Hitchens, and many, many more. One, how is it possible that ordinary speakers can understand indefinitely many expressions they have never encountered before, given that they know all along that the meaning of a definite stock of expressions they have already come across. Two, how is it possible for us to use expressions that ostensibly refer to comparatively stable and publicly accessible material things located in physical space, given that all we perceive are, upon final analysis, transitory and private sense data devoid of mass and physical extension. So everything is here, and the only thing we have is the sense data of that. So we are pretty limited. This is actually Ayer's view of the whole world. Ayer, but it's also very common. Ayer, Ayer. Bonobo chimpanzee. Ayer's entire book is devoted to answering this guiding question. Three, how can real things exist without our minds? Berkeley's answer is the famous proof that all real sensible things exist in God's infinite omnipresent spirit. Spirit, vodka or champagne we're going to drink when we have 2023. These problems are immotivated because they arise from a conflict between obvious facts and philosophical doctrines. The philosophers formulating the problem explicitly maintain without warrant. Without warrant. Whether the proponent of a problem lacks warrant for his explicit assumptions or implicit interpretation can, of course, only be established by careful analysis of the evidence and he adduces. Adduces. But above, we have seen that urges to misunderstand tend to systematically drive us beyond the limits of our warrant. Warrant, 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 warrant. Well, lacks warrant for assumption, assumptions. Sorry. Leaps of thought, sorry, manifesting such therefore tend to reliably indicate that this sort of careful scrutiny is called for. Is called for. Thank you. I was already thinking. and his theories, many theories formulated in response to such problems are as curiously underdeveloped in a way that suggests their authors relate them only to show how the particular problem they respond to might be solved. Oh, a case in point is the theory of classic semantic knowledge. That is to solve the problem of linguistic creativity by showing that utterances of new sentences trigger in speakers unconscious processes that produce the required new piece of semantic information by processing information about familiar words and constructions versus by executing derivations in compositional theories of meaning. The theory of tacit knowledge actually consists in a proposal of how to give content to talk of unconscious derivations in such semantic theories. Theories, roughly. Such processes are to be attributed to a speaker if and only if a causal explanation of the exercise his linguistic competence as a structure that mirrors, in a certain sense, the derivational structure of a compositional semantic theory for his Thank you very much, Henry, Lori Henry from Greece for that one. To to obtain the right to attribute such processes to actual speakers, we thus need to do three things. Three in one and three. We need to construct a semantic theory of our actual language to develop a causal explanation of the kind indicated and to verify whether the structure of one mirrors that of the other in the sense defined. Curiously enough, the proponents of the theory did not go on to address even what they had explicitly claim as philosophy's contribution to the overall project. They made no sustained attempt to construct a compositional semantic theory for any natural language. Manifestly, they had not enough interest in finding out whether it is actually true that competent speakers unconsciously execute derivations in semantic theories, and in which theories, if so, they did not really want to know. No, no. Rather, they lost interest in the explanatory project the moment its mere outline had provided them with a possibly true answer to question one above. Question one, of course, the hidden language or the hidden cause or mentally. Mentally, a potential solution to this problem is all they were after formulating the theory of tacit semantic knowledge. Tacit semantic knowledge. Very good. The peculiar lack of interest is not restricted to empirical matters. Consider the most detailed phenomenalist attempt to solve problem two above. Ayers suggested that we might actually employ our physical terms to describe and predict what subjective sense data we enjoy and try to expose as merely apparent various difficulties that might prevent us from doing so. Enjoy. Enjoy. Let's enjoy it. Indeed, let's enjoy it the most we can. And try to expose as merely as once he had thus shown to his own satisfaction that one might consistently employ physical terms to talk only about sense data. Data. He did not proceed to develop a conceptual analysis of at least a few of the physical terms we employ every to establish that we actually use those terms in that way. Here, he was not very interested in the meaning of our everyday physical terms or proper content of statements We make by their means. Their means. All air was after in formulating and phenomenally in semantic guise was an outline how a subject who perceives but sense data might employ physical terms. When a philosopher thus constructs a theory solely to provide a possible way of reconciling philosophical doctrines with obvious facts. Such efforts are utterly pointless by his own lights. By his own lights. In this case, we have reason to pursue the therapeutic aim of enabling the philosopher to give up his reconciliatory efforts without regret. Je ne regrette rien. Il y a, there's is it not? At the, at the beginning of this section, we advance the hypothesis that this happens not infrequently. The pointers and examples given should enable you to follow it up. It up will be the last word. Follow it up. For 1980, the production of the famous book by Leibniz, Metaphors We Live By. 77. Lake of Johnson. Yes. 1980, it's an epoch paradigm shifting book. And when I studied linguistics, it was still considered, I was in 1996, when I considered not good. Theoretical, yes, theoretical. Something you could read on the side. But apart from Chomsky, well, I will focus on the 1, 2, 3 on page 76. Yeah, Wittgenstein through Fischer kills off specific theories. The first is the mystery how we can understand so many expressions. And that leads to, I specifically studied that in Eugen von Richt. So what he does is formulating, and they're all Evans as well, they formulate theories that say somewhere language is formed that you can in spoken form in the inside of the brain. It's sort of hidden in the deep unconscious. That is one philosophical solution to problem schema 1, which I, to be honest, well, maybe a couple of years ago, and this is also the Chomsky method. So I'd say. And the second one, I think that's the most common, maybe 80-90%. And that is that I won't show the whiteboard here, but that there is a physical world outside of us, And that is completely, uh, has nothing to do with me. It's, I'm walking around in this world, and that is absolutely separate. So you can go to, by this, you can either go by having a bed and come to the conclusion, which is a rather unsavory one, that your observation do not exist. The sense data do not exist. The more common one is to say that there is only sense data, that you become an idealist. I think most people are, I think the layman take on this, I think that would be my guess. I don't know if you agree, but Danny, everything, and then they don't go to the sense. The third way, it's idealism, it is pure idealism, largely. And there's also much human idea that everything in the mind, when the mind is not even situated. Transcendentalism, you can call it. Often, I think people that a lot of those is very common now. Bernard Casper is familiar. So that's absolute idealism. There's no world, there's no mind, there's nothing. Bertrand Russell was an idealist for a time. All these things are relying actually in some way on the black box, the idea of self-control. Whether you say that that hiddenness is outside yourself, like in the matter, or inside of yourself in the little box, actually amount to the same thing. The proponent of these theories there are stuck in an either or idea. So, of course, Chomsky would never accept gestures, I would say. He would say it's only language. And the gestures, the ones who say there's only pantomime, there are quite few of them. But everything besides. I think it's both, and I say Wittgenstein's pointing to both. And all these one-sidedness theories, they get like rejected indirectly and directly. But I do like that you have it from Rick thing. It gives me heartburn almost. It's like everything gets explained without explaining it. The idea of complete determinism actually brings my chest, give me pain here. It's called the theory of tacit knowledge. It's not incredibly dissimilar from the idea of Plato, that all knowledge is inherent somewhere in the ideas. It's actually quite similar, and you only need to bring them forward or bring them out of yourself. And you do that by clear thinking or conscious direction. On page 75, I will take a quote there. I'll go by law, 75? 75, penultimate paragraph. Last sentence there. The mentalist, urge we consider ultimately arises. I suspect from unwittingly literal application of the books. So, despite make of Johnson, we normally or very often take it too literal or too stiff, a big either or. So we start saying it's either metaphor or reality. And that leads us then to such inferential urges may drive us to formulate ill-motivated reconciliation problems. And one is obviously was proposed by Hilbert at the Paris conference. He addressed the public, all the mathematicians and arithmeticians and geometrics were gathered and addressed and said, we must reconcile mathematics and make it consistent and coherent. Who took the gauntlet if not Kurt Gödel? And Kurt Gödel proved you can't do that to his own demise. Poor fellow! What did he do? He starved himself to death. He became paranoid. So that's as far as you can take it. But all these three things, and the fourth, if you're counting Kurt Gödel, they are similar because in a certain way they are mentalist. It's a huge thing, and as pointed out on page 77, I won't read it, they never go into explanations. They will not take it so far because they know they can't explain where is the black box situated, what is its context, what is its context, what does it contain really. There, it's a bit like Newton, he never explained what time was. Somehow, intuitively, they know they will not be able to formulate that. Have a look at, please. Oh, yeah.
So we have two opposite tendencies. One is the Freudian take. You have the origin in your inside of you that you have to find out. The origin of thing inside you.
The prime mover.
The prime mover. While then you have the other side, I have to be mentioned here. The opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's the reality, so to say, is out there.
Out there only.
Only there. So
and you're just a guest color.
Yes. So I'm only, my eyes are only the kind of transparent window. I don't have any meaning or no existence around.
Of course, everybody is determinist. Look at the internet, look at YouTube. There's so many videos now showing everything is determinist. Even my favorite Sapolsky, one of my favorites. He goes around saying everything.
This is a little bit close to metaphor. That's not familiar with anybody or the things that we in the Martin's article. One metaphor. Do you have any of this?
It was when you use something, the words are in the book, for instance. The book is used as a conduit metaphor. In the book, the words are inside.
As a container.
With the container, yeah. And of course, if you're going to be very strict, it doesn't really make sense, but it does make sense as a metaphor. Don't take it too deeply.
But here actually, Lakov has something to say about conduit metaphor. Let me see.
Just let me know if he wasn't the inventor, it was somebody from Eddie.
Let me see what he says about that. The contemporary theory that metaphor is primarily conceptual, conventional, and part of the ordinary system of thought, and language can be traced to Reddy's now classic essay. A single, thoroughly analyzed example, dialogue has to see. How big enough restrict domain that ordinary everyday English is largely metaphorical. Dispelling once and for all traditional view that metaphor is primarily in the realm of poetic or metafiguratory language. Reddy showed for a single very simple case that the locus of metaphor is thought, not language. That metaphor is a major and indispensable part of our ordinary concept of the world, that our everyday behavior reflects our metaphorical understanding of experience. Though other theories have noticed some of the characteristics of metaphor, Reddy was the first to demonstrate them by rigorous linguistic analysis, taking generalizations of the following. So it's not about, so it's a different explanation of conduit metaphor. Let me see. Yes, the idea is also words contain thoughts.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yes, so words contain thoughts. Okay, okay. Let me now actually go to jump back to idea. To try to disprove his idea by illustration. Since his arithmetic and since he's exponent of the passive I, I was thinking about taking up the Hebrew I, which is the seven, which is Hebrew word I is ein. But I want to say that it actually looks like two eyes. You see?
Yeah.
It's like our Y. So you see, you have two eyes there.
Yeah.
And you have those. So it's imitating it. So for eye, you cannot, so to say, separate eyes from, say, the throat or the body.
No.
Let me see, eye is yeah. Yeah. And then we have also the sound I, which is almost like sounds like I. So this I would say shows that everything is connected. The eyes connected to your body actually because it resembles two eyes like a throat and body.
Yeah.
So you and then it's connected to eye.
As well, yeah.
So everything is interconnected. Interconnected.
Interwoven, interconnected, yes.
So language, sight, the body, they're all the same. And the physical world, how would we think about the physical world if it was this course?
To allow me to suggest maybe we are interwoven with it inside and outside. Time bottle. The outside is not disjunct from the inside. It's equally, mutually participatory. One in the other in one. Not in isolation.
No. And the position variant of the whole. Yeah, it's actually pretty old. The position Omicron. So it's actually circular, like the eyes, the form of the eye, or whatever. But I think the Hebrew form gives more the connection to the body. The throat, that the Greek actually eliminates the body.
I like that.
So you need the body. So it's not the eyes need actually the throat. That is the point. There is no passing.
No, it's as we've spoken before, there are 3 times as many neurons going to the eye than from the eye. So seeing is very active. And we also know that seeing is deeply connected to how we move.
I guess that I think that I didn't know about that. Seeing is actually more. What did you say about neurons? The more neurons coming out or the
saccades,
saccades that are coming in and out.
Yeah, it's an active thing. And you don't the eyes are still only 10-20%. The movement is more important. If you can't move, you can't see. Because everything in the world moves. There is no idea of talking about, I see this one is a specific rest. That never happens. It's constant movement. When you are moving about, that will once more question the ideas of those ideas or to the There's no staticness there at all. Oh no.
Yes, perhaps this is a great metaphor to finish this the lesson, the discourse about the Hebrew letter. So, but the Hebrews have still the connection to the body, and we lost it in Greek and Latin because it became only around eye.
Yes, yes.
Like without any connection to anything.
No, without any. Yeah, I think that's good actually. It's just an idea, this idea that the eye see very little. It's the movement. It's our moving bodies. It's as we know, it's the knowledge capacity inside that we learned before. So you need to move around. You need to have language, gestures, and all that. That's real. We all see different.
And we have spoken in context with McNeil about the grand bite.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That's also a conduit metaphor.
But I think that grand bite is a better metaphor than conduit because conduit is really same. It's while grand bite is the grand bite because for once you have the linguistic idea. You can put the parentheses as
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Then a superposition between rain and rain.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And the second, okay, if we discussed the four series of cats who finished in the grand fight. And that is another variant of Schrödinger's cat. And that is in that case, the line pipe is both life and death. And so the position, and line pipe is also a unique other areas of life.
It's better to see the world as a spiral, gripping outside and inside at the same time. All this idea of a perpendicular world with X, Y, Z and a sort of timeline. I think that maybe we can even show that. Would you care to show that to the public?
Yes, stop, share, and then
Hola,
buenos días.
Buenos días.
Okay, so we have the Newtonian Cartesian
Newtonian
coordinate system. It's going out, it's going to this direction, and then the truth would be like a point. And let's say everything is large from these points.
And you can write the timeline crossover there.
Yes. Then you so to say, establish the truth. Truth is here.
And it's so-called everything straight, there's no spirals, everything is disjunct from each other.
And this would also compare it with the forcing, but also with the our hole coming from whatever. But if you go back to iron, it's the people letter I is then we get back the body.
Oh.
For the reality is not this young that we calculate from.
Yeah, Julian Barber brought that up too, and he showed that the old idea is what you usually call the washing line. And the washing line is like a long line, and you hang events like this, like a kind of pants. And then you have something else. Shirt, the end of the t-shirt. This is actually the common model today.
No, it's very big. Green what you see.
No, it's not.
You have to point out what are you
This
explaining?
is the washing line, and you hang moments like this. So this is a very common way of perceiving time. It's not true. It's not accurate. Instead,
We could actually illustrate it here.
hmm,
Here you have washing line.
yeah,
There you put, let's say, much.
you hang. This would be a moment in time, and I see in this when they write like, "Oh, Emperor August happened in 45 AD or something like that." This idea is not correct. No, it's interwoven. There are no separate times like that. That is Newtonian and Cartesian. It's constantly interwoven. So this date doesn't exist separately from our current date or from the physicality or the people observing it. So I think the spiral is much better. You never come back to the same time. It's interwoven. Paolo Rovelli describes that very well in his books. Helgoland doesn't go that deep into that, but some of his other books. And I could also recommend Lee's movie, Rebecca Powers' books. They're very enlightening on that subject.
Okay, let's.
Well done, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the active demonstration with your shirt. For air. Higher and fire. Fire oven. Thank you very much, Dr. Lundahl. Thank you for listening in. Have a very pleasant morning, day, afternoon, or wherever you are. Bye bye for now.
Reality.
Reality.